G'day guys, Tillis20 here and welcome back to Marble Mountain. Before I get into today's build, I do have a couple of quick announcements. First up, the Savegame is now up on the Steam Workshop, so if you want to download it and play on Marble Mountain or build or explore, it's totally up to you. It is honestly such a fun map to explore. We've been building on this map for almost 2 years now, and the changes that I've made since the last save game are pretty huge, mostly to do with the outskirts of the city, which I think are probably the most interesting parts. But it is all up for grabs, so go and download it and yeah, do whatever you like with it. Destroy the city, build in the city, make me a profit, which I'm always struggling to do. I'm really struggling, so if you could do that, that'd be awesome. But you don't have to. Honestly, I think the most fun about this map is just checking out all the little details we've been adding, like custom billboards and, you know, abandoned aircraft and prisons and swamplands and little towns and big towns. It's honestly just such a really fun map to explore. So yeah, let me know what you get up to in it. Discord's probably the best place to send any screenshots of things that you end up building, whether you expand out this way or build more in the city, or I don't know, totally destroy it. It's up to you. Yeah, check out the description of the workshop, of the save game on the workshop for more details. And the next announcement is that we are going to be doing another build competition. So we've done a couple of these build competitions in Marble Mountain. So the way that they work is you guys build in a certain location, which is going to be up here, and I'll show you that in a second. And then I choose with a couple of other people the best builds, the most appropriate builds to be exported into the actual save game. And then it just stays in the save game that, you know, gets featured in a lot of episodes. So for instance, Chinchilla was built by Cheesem, I believe, who did this like really amazing old town over here. There's like an abandoned airport, and somebody else has created a truck stop as well, and somebody else did a power station for a build competition. And we've also got, I mean, this amazing one, which is this whole like community out in the desert that's got this golf course surrounding the entire thing. So I can't take any credit for these builds. Just ignore all that power station over there. But yeah, I can't take any credit for this because I didn't do it. And if you would like to build in this competition and get your build featured in the save games, then this is what you need to do. You got to download the save game and then fly yourself over to this location, which I have provided an area for the builds. It's a pretty large spot, and it's out in the middle of the desert. It's like in the middle of nowhere, so that's sort of like the theme you have to go with. And this is the location that I want you guys to build in. Basically, you build here and then you use Move It to export your build. So you'll select all the stuff you build and export it and send it to me. But that's if you win. That's if I select you as the winner. Basically, you guys upload a screenshot of your build to my Discord server. There's like a whole chat dedicated to the build. And we'll select the winner in a month or so, and that will get exported to this location. But it's honestly just such a fun competition because, you know, you can see all the different builds that people end up doing in this location. You know, there's only like a certain amount of things, or at least in my mind, that you can build in something in an area like this, and people always seem to go above and beyond of the sort of things that they end up coming up with. I mean, it's a pretty unique location. And you don't have to do the most detailed builds, just like the most appropriate. So I'll be steering clear of builds that are, you know, towns, because we've already got towns around here. I'm sort of looking more for like factories or, you know, warehouses, or I don't know, maybe there's a parkland out this way, or there's like a festival out this way, or who knows? I mean, you guys generally come up with far better ideas than I do. And that is the beauty of this comp, is, you know, how people use this space and all the screenshots that get uploaded to their Discord. It's so interesting. So yeah, hit us up. And if you don't end up building in it, you just want to check it out. Yeah, just check out the Discord in the description below, and you can see everybody's entries. It's super fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys end up doing here. I'll talk more about that in the time lapse, which I'll get into now. It's in the city, and we're going to be building some big old mansions up on some hillsides, real Hollywood style, and it's going to be great. All right, let's get into it. So some of you who have been watching my channel for a while will know that this is not the first time that I've created buildings like this, or a suburb in this style. If I can dig through some of my old footage, I might be able to whip up some of the old footage from the last time I built this, which was a couple of years ago. You're either seeing it right now or you're seeing a big old nope on the screen. I don't really know. I'm pretty sure I've still got the footage. It's definitely up on YouTube, but yeah, I might still have the footage somewhere located on my computer. But basically, I have created like Hollywood, Beverly Hills-esque type houses and suburbs before, I guess. But yeah, it was kind of fun revisiting this whole style of building. I get so lost when I'm on Google Earth and just like checking out this type of houses around Hollywood, and this whole hill district they're just so insane. Like, I lose so much time. I've probably spent the more and more time just on Google Earth looking at pictures of these suburbs than actually building. To be honest, I really find these suburbs really quite fascinating. Less about like the attractiveness of the houses, because I actually don't like. The houses do nothing for me. I have no idea what people do with a house this size, and I couldn't give, like, yeah, you get the picture. I don't get it. I don't get mansions. I don't really care. I like to think that if I had this much money, like, I would definitely not own a house like this. But look, each to their own, I guess. I'm sure it'd be pretty cool living up on a hill or a ridge like this in some big old mansion, but I really just don't see the appeal. What I do really like about these places, though, is just the way that the roads have to navigate around these ridges around this mountainside, and how peculiar these houses look on top of them too, because they're just so strangely perched up on these mountainsides. You know, some of these big mansions, they're just dedicated to they've got their own roads, they've got their own ridge, and they're just looking over all of LA, and I just find that really quite amazing. So the real estate up in these areas I find quite fascinating, and like, I guess, like, who are buying these places? Like, I don't get, like, who would actually be able to buy a place like this. Hey, if you are someone who lives around this area, maybe I've got it all wrong, because on top of that, you know, on top of all these like massive mansions that sit up on these ridges, a lot of these houses that are around this like hill district, you know, aren't as big. Like, a lot of them are like super close together, and they're still perched up on these like mountains, and it's really just quite cool, like, seeing them up there, because the style of houses are so different to what you'd find them, you know, in just a regular old suburb. So I think that's why I find this area so interesting. I love mountains as well. I think that, like, the way that humans build on mountains, like, you know, districts or cities or whatever, I find it really interesting the way that, like, we have to navigate and build around these sort of areas. And I think that it also creates some really great and interesting, like, road patterns too, which I think is something that I would like to continue to work on. So this is definitely not the only time I'm going to be working on an area like this. I don't finish this suburb for sure. What I did want to get, though, what I wanted to get done is I wanted to get the ball rolling, and I wanted to basically just fill out this whole hillside at least. So the majority of the houses, you'd actually notice, and they're pretty small. That was something that I really didn't understand until I started building. I first, you know, because I was like, oh, okay, so all the houses around here are going to be super nice and super big. So I was going for like the bigger style growable buildings, and then they weren't fitting very well on this mountainside. So I ended up having to downsize to houses that were like 2 times 2. And some of them are just slightly bigger, but they're actually quite small houses. And I guess the reason being is, you know, in order to actually place them down and make them perched in these sort of locations, you can't have a big footprint, you know, in terms of city skylines. So I ended up choosing a whole bunch of smaller buildings, and something I didn't do on camera, but I just basically scrolled through Find It and Find It? Yeah, Find It. I feel like that wasn't the name of the mod, but it is. Yeah, just went and used Find It and just was trying to find buildings that were going to work the best in this area. So you'll see a lot of the same buildings in the same, like, not the same spot. You'll see a lot of the same buildings, but I try to space them out so they don't look the same, or you just rotate them and then they look quite different. So the majority of the houses up here are these like smaller types of houses, and then you will also see like mixed in with all these, you know, just these like regular old normies, I guess. You'd also find like just some ridiculous mansions that are sitting up here. And you'll see me work on one in a sec. But basically, I would like to continue working in this area, you know, as we progress in Marble Mountain. I'd also like there to be a couple of other suburbs that look quite similar to this. So I don't want just Bayview to have like, you know, this style of houses. Pretty much anywhere that there's going to be a ridge like this in this sort of area, there's going to be houses of this size. So that's what I'm going to continue to do moving forward, especially on the other side of the river. When we get over there, there's going to be a whole bunch of other hillside districts. Again, I'm going to be building something pretty similar to Hollywood, and building something really similar to like the studios in Hollywood too, because obviously I'm taking inspiration from Los Angeles, and I would like to, you know, sort of stay true to that. I also think those studios are like something that would be really interesting and pretty cool to like add within this. A lot of people I've had like a lot of comments of like, I guess people who are new to the series and said, you know, like, why is this so similar to Hollywood? Like, you know, why don't you just build Los Angeles, or why don't you just build San Francisco? But I don't know, I just think that, you know, if you're gonna, obviously I'm taking inspiration from those two cities, San Fran and Los Angeles, and I've done Los Angeles before, so this isn't even the first time I've built a city based in Los Angeles, but I don't know, I just think that, you know, I think it'd be stranger if I was trying to rebuild Sydney, because I live in Sydney, so I've like, you know, it's kind of like done and dusted for me. I'm very familiar with it, whereas like LA and San Fran, two cities that I think are very iconic, and two cities that I think have very unique types of landscapes and styles, and yeah, like I said before, they're iconic, and I don't want to rebuild them, but I do like the idea of like alternate universes, you know, like as if this, you know, obviously Marble Mountain is just based on the landscape of California, and you know, I think it'd be a bit boring if I was just to like do it piece by piece, kind of like similar to my Miami series. Definitely not doing piece by piece for that one, but I think it's like interesting when you take, you know, elements of that and do it in your own way, because I feel like that's when you get the most amount of creativity. Whereas when I did Springwood, like many years ago, the last time I built an area like this, that had influences from like so many different cities, and that was really tricky to, you know, push an identity for that city, because, you know, I was taking influences from so many different places. So I think it's like important to, you know, stick with a particular theme and, you know, push it, you know, push that theme until the end, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Not that anybody asked. I'm sure you guys are tuning in so that I'll talk about what I'm building, which I haven't talked about. Now I'm finally building my very first big old mansion. This one is kind of like nestled in like this little cul-de-sac, not really taking inspiration off anything in particular, but, you know, obviously just the types of buildings in these areas. So it's a bit pieced together, and look, I mean, it's good. I don't know. It is what it is. I like parts of it and I dislike parts of it too. I was really close to using a set of houses that are really similar to this by Lijo, who's created like some amazing cliffside houses that would fit really well in an area like this. They're actually like totally styled for this area. But I chose not to use them purely because I was able to build something somewhat how I wanted us to do it in this area, and that's sort of the way it works in Marble Mountain. If I can somehow pull it off, then I just stick with what I've got. Whereas if there was like no houses, I was very close to downloading them. I actually downloaded them, started building with them, and then I was like, nah, gonna stick with some vanilla buildings. So yeah, you're gonna get some pretty wonky style mansions, but I don't know, I like that they're its own thing, and that each one is gonna be tailored to the environment, you know, to fit into their particular location. But I did want to do a fair amount of detail around here, you know, just making sure that these houses were pretty close to the road. So like I'm definitely not letting things just grow by themselves, and I'm definitely not, you know, I'm being very particular with the types of houses I'm choosing, because some of them like fit better on cliff sides. So you can see that one that's like got a pretty decent view that sits up there, and a whole bunch of them are just like dragged closer to the road, because a lot of the houses around here are like don't really have footpaths around this area. They're all just like very close to the actual road edge. So I was doing that, and I think like from afar it looks way better. When you get up close to some areas, it looks pretty sick, but I think that you really have to stretch your imagination. With suburbs like this, they're definitely, yeah, it's definitely a bit of a challenge. But a challenge that I really enjoyed and something that I'm pretty keen to get back into. So something that I did notice around the types of suburbs around like Hollywood, and by the way, I'm just saying Hollywood because like that's the only place that I know in this location. I know enough to like dive deep into this area, but not enough to start learning the names of suburbs. So feel free to educate me. You're more than welcome to. Not that I'll remember the names of the suburbs, but go for it. But basically, there's a whole bunch of different styles of houses around here. So like I said, you've got the smaller types of houses that make up the bulk of these areas. Then you've got the big ones that sit up on the ridges. But then you've also got like these gated communities that are all built at the same time. You know, this whole community was built, and then the most ridiculous types of houses down here. Again, I went on the biggest, like, you know, I found websites about people who live in these areas, like movie stars, like finding out what like celebrities live down here. Like I said, I went down a massive rabbit hole when I built this suburb. But basically, I wanted to build something like this at some stage, but I don't know how I'm going to be able to pull off this style of mansions. There's actually still to this day not a great deal of mansions on the Steam Workshop. So yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge to build, you know, these sort of style of houses, but it'll be cool to build a couple of gated communities. I don't think there's any room on this side of the river, but I think potentially on the other side of the River of Montana, then we will actually be able to create some more suburbs like this. But yeah, a gated community I think would be really cool. Now I'm starting to work on another big mansion sitting up on the cliffside. This one is yeah, I really like the way this one turned out, because I had to like try and create a bit of like a stepped down garden so that it you know, had different layers to it. So I'm using the retaining wall, which again, use it for everything. It's pretty versatile, and I'm using it to create these levels. And basically, I'm using the ploppable asphalt mods to you know, create the actual plopped surface. And then at some stage, I'll use some grass, which is I think like rooftop grass that was introduced with the Green Cities DLC, but it's like free. You don't have to get the DLC to use them. And then you can actually use that as grass. And I did that for my condo build that was near the rail park that I built a couple of months ago. But that was like a really cool technique that made like really convincing grass and lawned areas. And basically the areas that don't get covered by lawn, then they're just like the footpaths for the house. And man, I really like it. A couple of things I was struggling with is the pool size. So obviously I wanted to make much larger pools. Like every house in this area should have a pool pretty much. That's sort of the way how it goes. And you know, this pool's fine, like the vanilla ones. There's a couple of vanilla ones. This would be fine if it was, no, it's actually, it'd never be fine. It sucks. This pool totally sucks. It's more of a spa, and there's no fence around it, and it's got like a weird step. Like they put no effort into making this pool. So if you are an asset creator, we desperately need some pools. I know there's been like you know, Ronix released some pools, and King Leno released some really awesome looking pools too, but they were more for like resorts and hotels. We just need some regular old pools. So if you're interested, that'd be great. There's a couple of these assets, so you can actually see a couple of those houses come with some pools, but I don't know, like, I'm sure we can do better. So that would be something that we desperately need. But yeah, you can see it all starting to come together. I really love the way that the road snakes its way around. I tried to make it go around the ridges so that it, you know, it's sort of like built in a purposeful way, not just, obviously you can't do a grid around an area like this, and I think that's why I like it so much. And you get some crazy angles, like crazy steep gradients, which I also really like to work with. I've been to Los Angeles twice now, and the first time I went was like 10 years ago, and I stayed in Hollywood, and I really regret not doing, like, there's a whole bunch of people around like handing out pamphlets so that you do like movie star tours, and you know, you go you take buses around places like this. I mean, I still feel like that'll be hell, to be honest. I feel like that'd just be like my worst nightmare. But, man, I regret not venturing up into these hillsides. So, yeah, next time I go to LA, which I don't know how far off that is going to be, I'd love to check out places like this, which is a bit weird. I mean, not like you don't usually hang out as a tourist in suburbs, so maybe I'm just romanticizing it more than it really deserves. But I don't know, I find these areas pretty interesting. Geez, I find this suburb so interesting that I've failed to mention anything about the build competition or the fact that the map is now up on the Steam Workshop. So, sorry. Basically, all the information about the build competition is on Discord, and I'll leave a comment down below as well, so if you want to check out any more info about that. If you can't download the map for some reason, then you can just build something within a similar size and then just send it to me on a blank map. But it's a completely flat landscape, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, get involved, guys. Enjoy the save game, fly around this map all for yourself, and check out this suburb if you like. I'm sorry I failed to mention all that stuff. I went on a bit of a tangent. That's pretty standard stuff. But guys, that is it for this episode. I do hope you've enjoyed it. I enjoyed putting it together, and I look forward to building more suburbs like this in the future. Before I go, I would like to give a special shout out to some of my patrons like Yizen Wang, Julian Thomas, and Craig Panther. Guys, thank you so much for your support on Patreon, and thank you guys so much for watching my videos. Much appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!